Good morning. Welcome, everybody who paid attention to the time change. Well done. It happens less and less now that most of our devices change themselves over, but should anybody come in looking confused an hour from now, be kind to them and invite them to lunch. I'm Amy Zucker-Morgenstern. My pronouns are she or they, and you are very welcome here at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Palo Alto. We gather our different paths entwined to deepen our spiritual lives, nourishing connection, learning from each other, caring for each other, tending to our world. As people do come in, maybe move toward the center of the aisles. If you don't need to be on the aisles, move to the center of the section so people can come in if they do come in late, especially with larger groups. If you're here in person and you have questions about Unitarian Universalism or this congregation in particular, stop by the welcome table out front and do chat with Kathy and Lisa there. They'd be happy to tell you anything you might want to know. You can leave your contact information there if you want to receive notifications of upcoming events. We have a weekly update. And if you've been thinking about joining the congregation, I want to particularly encourage you to do it over the next couple of weeks because this year's annual meeting is occurring on April 27th. By the bylaws, to be able to vote at this meeting, you have to have joined a full 30 days before. So that means declaring your membership, in time for the next board meeting, which is on March 26th. So if you've been thinking about it, before March 26th would be a good time. Today closes our Stewardship Week. Thank you all for being, Thank you all for being caring stewards of this congregation in so many ways, not only giving financially to support the budget that is mostly supported with our pledges, but with your presence here, your participation in small groups, your leadership of committees and the board, weeding the garden, serving the lunch that we are all going to enjoy after the service. Thank you so much for shepherding this community into the strength and vibrancy that we all enjoy. If you have, please do come to an extra special second Sunday lunch where we'll celebrate this congregation. It's on the Stewardship Committee. Please enjoy. If you haven't turned in your pledge card yet, which you can do electronically or on paper, please do. That will mean that nobody has to actually call asking where it is and save everybody a lot of trouble, including you. The folks from the stewardship team are at the table. I think it's going to be the table in the... No, we're eating outside. Look, it's beautiful. Okay, thank you. Table with, I think, in the lobby. They'll be there to answer all your questions, provide pledge packets if you need one, just anything you might want to know. That's what they're there to answer. And I believe we once again have a special dessert. So if you missed it last week, or you loved it last week, stick around. I have this sneaking suspicion I've forgotten something that I'm going to have to say later in the service. But, that's it.
Excuse me. I have looked at our village outside, our biblical village in this Roman time, and we have no potters, no cooks, no writers, no one to help our young people learn about biblical times. So if you are interested in being a potter, a cook, athletic trainer, or many other options, please come talk to me or email me, revcat@uucpa.org. Thank you.
All right. What is a Judean village without potters and scribes and tax collectors, I believe we've had in the past? I mean, they're famously present there. So I believe you can be a member of the village for just 1 week and teach the children something about what that life was like. And also wear costumes. And now let us begin our service.
Our chalice sliding this morning is from Gretchen Haley. If you have a chalice there at home with you, please light it along with me. There is nothing you need to bring with you to be welcome here. No right beliefs or proof of citizenship, no eternal optimism or clarity of conviction, no boundless courage or endless expertise. You do not need to know what brought you here or how you will solve that problem you are turning over and over and over in your mind. Your bills do not need to be paid, and your checkbook can be a mess. Your children may have been up half the night. Your hearing aids may not be working, and your knees may be creaking. You do not need to be already perfect or even halfway to belong to this circle where grace meets us where we are, but does not leave us as it found us. Where love resides in each of us, yet is somehow more than all. Where life still pulses and rages and heals and transforms, creating us and this day anew once again. Come, let us worship together. With our centering words each week, we draw on the many sources of our living tradition. Today's words are from Hermann Hesse. It is not our purpose to become each other. It is to recognize each other, to learn to see the other and honor them for what they are. As we follow the sound of the bell into silence, we allow ourselves to arrive here fully.
Colorful quilt up at the front. Today we're going to be telling a Native American story. This is an indigenous story about sweetgrass, and it tells us about how to do the very last line in our benediction. Hello, hello. Honor all beings. So in the story, the humans are honored, the ancestors are honored, and the nature is honored. Hello, hello. So, my friends, this story is called The First Blade of Sweetgrass. So, as Grandma's blue truck crested the hill, Muskan saw the ocean for the first time that day. The water's surface sparkled in the sunlight. Look, Ukomi, this is where we pick sweetgrass, Muskan said excitedly. Yes, Muskan, grandmother said. Sweetgrass grows in the salt marsh, where the river meets the ocean. Oh, and then there she is with her grandma.
Wow, that must be rare to get that stuff.
Yeah, let's find out how they do it. My grandma brought me here when I was a little girl. She was my first sweetgrass teacher. I would help her pick sweetgrass to weave into baskets. Oh, cool. Our people have been coming here to pick sweetgrass for generations. We call it wemiskitli, and we use it in ceremonies as well as in baskets, and sweetgrass is spiritual medicine for us. So you can see them.
Medicine?
Yeah, spiritual medicine means that when people are feeling bad in their heart, they might take it. Grandmother stopped in the shade of the tree and put down their bag. This is what we'll pick, she said. It's important to remember that we never pick the first blade of sweetgrass we see. And if we never pick the first blade of sweetgrass, we will never pick the last blade of sweetgrass. We must make sure that there will be sweetgrass here for the next generation. The next generation is all of you guys. Come here, Zoo, Grandma said. Bend down and look at the grasses closely. Sweetgrass has a shiny green tassel, green like Izzy's jacket, and blades and a purple stem, and gives itself to you. If you tug lightly on a piece of sweetgrass, it will let go. If you have to pull hard, then you are not pulling sweetgrass. I see, Ikomi, Muskan said confidently. I know how to pick sweetgrass. Whoa. Oh, and then you see that big bird? So she sat in the cool air and watched the colors of the grass shift with the wind. A large bird flew and then glided into the water. She looked at her grandmother and saw that she had already picked a lot of sweetgrass. Muskan closed her eyes and thought about her grandma as a little girl in the very same place. She thought about her ancestors here in the marsh. Slowly, the smell of sweetgrass drifted by. It was the same sweet smell that her grandmothers had in her basket room. Muskan opened her eyes and smelled in the distance. She could see her ancestors picking sweetgrass. All right. Okay, so what do we see on the next page? Oh, look at her. She looked at all that grass. She looked down at the grass again. The beautiful emerald green color of the sweetgrass popped out of all the other grass. She could see it. And she reached eagerly to pick the first blade of sweetgrass, but then she stopped. Remembering her grandma's words, she remembered to reach past the first blade of sweetgrass and tug lightly on the next one. She felt the roots, let go of the soil, and the grass gave itself up to her. Muskan picked while the cat's paws of the winds chased each other in the darker fans on the blue bay. She was excited to get home and show her parents all the sweetgrass she had picked, and perhaps next summer she could teach her younger sister, Amasquit, how to pick sweetgrass. So thank you for listening to my story today about the green grass of spring. After we sing our hymn, I invite all my friends to come with me to Children's Chapel and Coming of Age. I'm not sure what song we were singing. Amy, what song are we singing?
We are singing Come Wherever You Are. It's very short, so we'll sing it a few times. Please rise in body or spirit. And the words are up on your screen as well as in the gray order of hymnal, the gray hymnal, 188. Come, come, whoever you are. Come, whoever you are. Wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving. Ours is no caravan of despair. Come yet again, come. Welcome, welcome. This is the time. Blessed be. Sometimes a source of sorrow in our lives is the way we ourselves miss the mark, fall short of something that we wanted to do or something that we said that we wish we didn't say. It's good to have a loving community to hold us, remind us that we are worthy, that none of us is perfect, so that we can reflect in the privacy of our own hearts on anything that we want to change and seek out the help of this community to change going forward. So this is a time of silent reflection, just to consider if there's anything to which you want to recommit yourself in the weeks to come. These reflections are private, but the support that we get in becoming more the people that we want to be, becoming closer and closer to our better selves, we do that all together, and with the support not only of this community right here, but a whole tradition of ancestors and writings that support us. So let's say together, just remaining seated, the principles of this movement. We have recently adopted a new formulation called the Shared Values of Unitarian Universalism, but former writings are always with us. So we're going to say the 7 principles, now 8, with one proposed 8th one, of the Unitarian Universalist Association. We covenant to affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of every person, justice, equity, and compassion in human relations, acceptance of one another, and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations, a free and responsible search for truth and meaning, the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process within our congregations and in society at large. The goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. Respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. And a proposed 8th, journeying towards spiritual wholeness by working to build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community, by our actions that accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions in ourselves and in our institutions. It is good to be among people who share these principles and guide us in being our best selves. I'm always a little bit ambivalent about this hymn, but we can leave that to lunch to talk about why, and I'd love to hear your thoughts about it too. But it's so lovely. So let's sing together. Earth was given as a garden, number 207. Please rise in body or spirit. And the words are up here. Notice one change in the words. If you're looking at the hymnal, please notice the difference to all human children instead of sons and daughters. If you're looking at the screen, no problem. It's already exactly the way we're going to sing it.
Tree
Honor all beings. What does it even mean? I found a lot of definitions of honor as a verb, and the one I will use today is the one that popped up when I typed define honor into Google. Its source is Oxford Languages. Their definition of honor, the verb, is regard with great respect. Not just respect, great respect. As you use, we have largely adopted the Christian commandment to love your neighbor as yourself. I've always had a little trouble with that. Love, as we usually use it, is an emotional connection. This is true even when we say we're talking about agape, the Greek word used in the Bible. We don't actually process the word love that way. The connotations always include romantic love and familial love. It's very mushy. So I find that honor is easier than love. It's certainly clearer. Honor is more like a conscious, rational decision than some manufactured feeling. It's a better guide to attitude and action. It doesn't require me to like others. It does require me to treat them always as legitimate, as valuable. But honor is also harder than love. It's self-effacing. It doesn't just imply equality. It requires deep humility. It disallows assuming that you know what's best for others just because you love them. Honor's very difficult, particularly in challenging times like ours. And I have to confess, I'm not good at this. I'm stubborn. I'm opinionated. I can eye roll with the best of them. I'm having a lot of trouble with honoring our political leadership on both sides of the aisle. But I also believe that part of our current troubles are the failures of all of us to honor those who disagree with us. So I continue to work on honoring all beings, and I love saying those words every week.
Thank you, Jane. Jane had kind of a busy week. Thank you for taking some time of it to give to this congregation and sharing that reflection. This is two passages from the book Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer, who is a botanist, a biologist, the founder and director of the Center for Native Peoples and the Environment, a professor at one of the state universities of New York, and as well as a U.S. citizen, an enrolled citizen of the Potawatomi tribe. This is a traditional story told from the southwest to the northeast of the years when the corn harvests were so plentiful that the caches were full. The fields had been so generous with the villagers that the people scarcely needed to work. So they didn't. Hoes leaned against a tree, idle. The people became so lazy that they let the time for corn ceremonies go by without a single song of gratitude. They began to use the corn in ways the three sisters had not intended when they gave the people corn as a sacred gift of food. They burned it for fuel when they couldn't be bothered to cut firewood. The dogs dragged it off from the untidy heaps the people made instead of storing the harvest in secure granaries. No one stopped the kids when they kicked ears around the village in their games. Saddened by the lack of respect, the corn spirit decided to leave, to go where she would be appreciated. At first, the people didn't even notice. But the next year, the cornfields were nothing but weeds. The caches were nearly empty, and the grain that had been left untended was moldy and mouse-chewed. There was nothing to eat. The people sat about in despair, growing thinner and thinner. When they abandoned gratitude, the gifts abandoned them. One small child walked out from the village and wandered for hungry days until he found the corn spirit in a sunlit clearing in the woods. He begged her to return to his people. She smiled kindly at him and instructed him to teach his people the gratitude and respect that they had forgotten. Only then would she return. He did as she asked, and after a hard winter without corn to remind them of the cost, she returned to them in the spring. Here's a story Kimmerer tells from her own experience. I once met an engineering student visiting from Europe who told me excitedly about going ricing in Minnesota with his friend's Ojibwe family. He was eager to experience a bit of Native American culture. They were on the lake by dawn, and all day long they pulled through the rice beds, knocking the ripe seed into the canoe. It didn't take long to collect quite a bit, he reported, but it's not very efficient. At least half of the rice just falls in the water, and they didn't seem to care. It's wasted. As a gesture of thanks to his hosts, a traditional ricing family, he offered to design a grain capture system that could be attached to the gunwales of their canoes. He sketched it out for them, showing how his technique could get 85% more rice. His hosts listened respectfully, then said, "Yes, we could get more that way, but it's got to seed itself for next year. And what we leave behind is not wasted. You know, we're not the only ones who like rice. Do you think the ducks would stop here if we took it all?" Honor all beings. I really appreciate Jane framing for us how difficult that is because, wow, we don't ask much of ourselves, do we? That we close our services every week with these high ideals, these 10 statements, reminders to ourselves, everyone is difficult, and I don't know if any is more difficult than this one. Honor. Not just give grudging respect or noticing, but honoring. And then all beings, everything that lives. It's hard enough just to honor myself and the people in my family. In fact, when I'm reflecting, when we have that period of recommitment, I'm often thinking about ways that I dropped the ball on just that. I was chatting with a friend about this high goal, and she said it reminded her of something that they say in synagogue every week. 10, I think it was obligations, not commandments. It's a different thing. I was thinking for a moment that she was saying like the 10 suggestions, and it sounded like a UU joke, but no, they're sort of the social obligations, things that we seek to do. She says that they say every week in her shul. And one of them is honor your parents, for example, and another is to celebrate with a marrying couple. And she said one of the things about them is they're all potentially infinite. There's no end to how much one could honor one's parents properly. There's no end to how much one should celebrate the joy of one's somebody in one's community. So she said each person has to decide, how much can I do this? I want to honor this obligation. I want to do these things. I want to honor my parents. I want to celebrate with the couple that is marrying. How much can I do of this potentially infinite obligation? And this is like that. Honor all beings, it's so huge. Let us do the piece that we can do. What does honor mean in that context? Well, talking about the Jewish setting and hearing the honor your parents, that is in the 10 Commandments. The word for honor is kavod, which has a dual meaning. A complex meaning of kind of related things. One side of honor is glory, splendor. And I think of that in the sort of sense of, you give somebody a great award, right? You honor them. You're recognizing their glory in some way, their reputation. And then the other sense of kavod is weight like heft. Kavod implies substance, to the point of a burden one carries. To have honor is to be heavy, to occupy space, to be firm. In other words, to have dignity. And when we honor things, we recognize you have heft. You take up space. You are worth carrying. And you are shining in splendor. Kimmerer is one of my favorite guides to how to relate to other beings, human and otherwise. And these two stories tell us so much about how we might honor the beings that share this world, starting right there in our own homes and moving far beyond. That first story is a morality tale, of course. Personified, the corn spirit withdraws her favors. But what a personified spirit does deliberately, nature just does as a matter of course. The corn is not spiting anybody when it doesn't grow very well the next year. If they didn't weed and plant and plow and nurture the soil, that's just what happens. And so the story is told to remind people the corn isn't out to get you, but it needs you. It needs your honor if it's to honor you with this gift of wonderful food. And then the story of the Rising family. He was well-intentioned, of course, the visiting friend. He wanted them to be efficient, but they pointed him to a different kind of efficiency that he wasn't aware of because he didn't yet know the whole system. That generations of people rising in the lakes of Minnesota had learned and passed on. That there is more than just this family or this community and this year. There's the future. How are we going to provide for next year's harvest? By letting some of the seed drop down again to the bottom of the lake. How are we going to provide for the ducks that we also want to come? They didn't say, maybe they also eat some of the ducks. In any case, they want this the ecology of the space to be protected, and so they need to think about the ducks. It's really not efficient to take too much more. When I wake in the night sweating about climate change and I worry, how will we ever learn to tend this planet? The thing that I take the most hope from is the fact that human beings know these technologies and have been teaching them for a very long time. And that it's actually a pretty brief and geographically limited piece of humanity that went astray and forgot that you actually have to provide for the ducks and for next year's harvest. We don't have to invent it. We just have to listen. What Kimmerer calls all this, and which I completely forgot until I went looking for a reading for this week's service, this is called the honorable harvest. That's what the people who tell these stories call it. The sense of a harvest, a sense of taking from the land what you need that goes even beyond sustainability. It's about respect. It's about knowing the connections among all these things, far beyond what you might be able to see, like the ducks that are right now not even on the water but will come back. Thinking ahead to many years, many generations even forward. That is to honor not only the harvest, but everything that is connected. And it's the way to honor ourselves. I think it's a spiritual practice. You know, we really do have the suggestions more than the rules. And the words that we say to ourselves at the end of the service are suggestions. They're reminders. How do I want to live? Okay, I want to live in a way that honors all beings. How do I do that? Well, it's a practice. How do we do that? How do we practice treating each being as worthy? Again, we're talking about every living thing on Earth, right? We don't even know many of the species, much less have a connection, a known connection to each individual animal, plant, fungus, bacterium out there. How do we act in ourselves that honors all these other living beings? I think the first way is by respecting ourselves. And I realized that that's going to take a whole other sermon or 5. But we're practicing it a little bit today, right? By celebrating. We're taking care of a community that matters to us. And we're saying, well done. We celebrate. We have a special lunch together, and we have time together. This is why harvest spring parties. You don't just say, oh, thank God, the corn is in the granary. All the pledges are in. Time to just, rest up, sharpen the tools for next year. You have a party. That's part of how we respect ourselves and say, hey, we're helping make something important happen. And the second way, and where I want to spend the rest of my minutes here, is by acknowledging the inherent worth and dignity of other living beings. Just literally by noticing and saying out loud to ourselves and to them, I see this. I see this in you. It's interesting to me, we proposed that eighth principle, which would have messed up the symmetry I'm talking about right now, but I'm glad the principles of it got into our shared values. But the 7 principles that have guided Unitarian Universalists for a couple of generations now begin and end with ones that are very closely, not only parallel, they might sound opposite, but I think that they are parallel and in fact versions of the same thing. The first is we affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of every person. I'm going to read that as being. And then the last is, the 7th, respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. They're the same thing. Recognizing that everything has inherent worth and dignity means that we respect it all. And that's how we respect ourselves, because we know we're not separable from the web. So how do we go about that on a daily basis? How can this be a practice? Here's one that comes up as a challenge frequently if you're just, strolling along a city street. You might encounter someone who's so desperately poor that they're asking strangers for $1. Anything helps. Their sign says something like that. Every little bit. I went by somebody the other day who said, couple quarters? A couple quarters don't go very far. But he needed them. The need is bottomless, which is why sometimes it's tempting to just walk past. Now, of course, there are lots of ways to help. You can say, actually, I'm not going to give this man a couple quarters, but I'm going to support Heart and Home here. I'm going to support the building of affordable housing when I go talk to my members of Congress or my local legislators. I'm going to cook for the folks who come here for a shelter, etc. There's lots of ways to honor people besides giving to every person who asks. But they are a reminder. I do want to honor everybody in my community. And I think that one thing we can do, our practice, when we are asked for something that at that moment we do not feel we can or should give, that we look them in the eye. We say, sorry, not today. Instead of acting as if they're invisible and inaudible. That takes us beyond merely the question of sustainability, right? What can I actually give? But into that deeper question, like the Rising family asks, like the corn-growing communities ask, about reciprocity and interdependence. It's not punitive. It's just, if you want to receive, then you must give. And if you give, you will receive. To treat other living things honorably is to meet them with gratitude and respect their dignity. So this matter of meeting someone's eyes, that's how we do it with other humans. It may look different as we walk through a park, as we read the news. How do we meet other beings with gratitude and recognize their heft? There are so many small practices that can remind us that they matter. That in the words of the hymn we sang, all creatures, this is one of the things I really like about that hymn, all created in your image. Genesis says that human beings were created in God's image, and the writer of the hymn says all living things were created in God's image. Imagine a God that's part moss, that's Kimmerer's area of expertise, part charming things like dolphins, part less charming things like pond scum. Pond scum's just a mean name for algae, really. God, all of those things. It's a lovely thought. Because they all matter. We know this. We're environmentalists. We believe in the web and the fact that we don't even know all the ways that we're interconnected. And so we respect it all. Isn't that the plea of the simple slogan, Black Lives Matter? We are here. We have heft and dignity. Don't ignore us. Not asking for anything other than recognition that it matters whether this person lives or dies. Echoing the placards of the sanitation workers' strike decades earlier, a collection of black men asking for their rights, the sign said, "I am a man." It's heartbreakingly modest. Just recognize, I'm a person facing you here. Dignity is modest. It really is. As Jane said, to love one another, which we strive to do as well. We talked about that last week. That's one kind of challenge. To honor all beings is in one way simpler. It isn't to hang a medal around their necks or give them an Academy Award. It's just to say, you matter. I recognize that you matter. Regardless of whether I like you, want to have you running around my pantry, even know you exist. We don't have a practice of saying grace before our meals, even though we eat a lot together here. And there's some logistical reasons behind that. We eat buffet style. There's no one moment when we're all sitting with our food before us, not yet eating. But here we are right now, before we have our meal. So I want to close this sermon by doing that right now. This is another spiritual practice, to give thanks. And food is a wonderful place to do that because, well, it connects us to everything. So I want to give thanks for the food and then, minister style, give a commentary on what I have just said. Thank you. Thank you for what we are about to receive. Thank you to the living beings that have given their lives so that we may sustain ours. The salmon, the cucumbers, the garbanzo beans, the wheat, all of them. Thank you, those who brought it to our table, those who lean over to pick the onions covered in the dust of the ground over and over all day and then do it again the next day and the next. Thank you. Thank you to those who loaded the trucks and drove them long, weary miles. Thank you to those who prepared the food, members of our community right here, who with laughter and attention, in other words, with love and honor, made the food ready for us to enjoy. Thank you to all whose lives have gone into what we are about to receive. May we honor them by using our energy worthily, by eating with appreciation. Let us honor those with whom we are gathered. Pay attention to them as well as every bite. The saying of grace, in other words, is a way not to take things for granted, but to accept them and know them as gifts. Those are quite different. In a simple calculation of receivables and payables, they're the same thing. Something that comes in, something that goes out. However it comes in, whether you bought it or were given it or stole it, it's the same thing. Lettuce is lettuce. We eat it. It sustains our bodies, no matter how it came to us or what we do with the little bit of energy and a lot of vitamins that we might get from it. That's a way to take it for granted. But lettuce as a gift connects us to, well, John Muir said, when we tug at a single thing in nature, we find that it's attached to the rest of the world. Once you start to give thanks to your lettuce, you'll discover just how much we are connected to. Everything, in fact. The fact that everything has heft, that everything matters, everything has dignity and worth, all beings. That connects us, that reminds us to be connected by it to the entire universe. Which is to say that when we honor those we encounter, these other beings, we become immeasurably greater. We honor ourselves by recognizing we are part of this marvelous shining web, aware that we are the universe, as are they. So bon appetit, buen provecho. Let us enjoy our meal together and honor ourselves, those with whom we gather, and the whole wide world of beings that converges here in this sacred place. Let us now give and receive this offering. It is a gift, as are all our pledges. It's not an obligation, not legally, not in our bylaws. We give as gifts what we can in order to support something that is precious to us and that we need. If we don't support the congregation because we feel a part of it and supported by it, well, I'm not, naive enough to say don't bother, but we're missing the point. So if you feel moved in this moment, if you feel gratitude in this moment to support the congregation, then please give your symbolic gift via check or cash, or the Order of Service has instructions on how to give via Give Lively or PayPal. And all of us will gratefully receive and thrive from what you give. Thank you. Let's sing together now. Wake Now My Senses, which is number 298 in the Gray Hymnal, or the words are up here on your order of service and in your order of service. Please be seated. Finish the chalice with words of Elizabeth Sella Jones. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Always at your back. May the Barbary, and I really wanted to give you a gift to take you out into your week. So I'm going to teach you a song by Melanie DeMore, written in 2016, and it's called Lead with Love. The chorus is very simple. I'll teach it to you right now. And then there's verses which are call and response. So all you have to do is copy what I do. So really simple. It's a great reminder that as we leave an intentional sacred space and go out into a rather daunting world, politically, personally, that we can, forge ahead by being deliberately in the moment, one step at a time, and remembering that we have each other. So here is Lead with Love. I'll sing 2 lines and have you sing them back to me. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Don't give up hope. You're not alone. Don't you give up. Keep moving on. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Lift up your eyes. Don't you despair. Look up ahead. The path is there. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. I know you're scared, and I'm scared too, but here I am, right next to you. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. And lead with love. And lead with love. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbary, and everybody for singing. Now, whether you're online or here in the main hall, hope you'll stay after the benediction for conversation time. If you're at home and you can come to lunch, it's not too late. But let us, whether we're here having lunch or chatting in a Zoom room, have some greeting time, a chance to talk to somebody you haven't met before or haven't seen in a while. Find out enough about them to connect them to someone else. Now, if you're online, please unmute yourself, turn on your video. You know, we have our way of touching hands virtually, if you want to watch anybody do that. And if you're in the main hall or on the patio, reach out to hold hands if you and the person next to you are comfortable with that. If not, maybe just cross your hands over your heart. Go out into the world in peace. Be of good courage. Hold fast to what is good. Return no one evil for evil. Strengthen support the weak, help the suffering, rejoice in beauty, speak love with word and deed, honor all beings. Amen. Amen. Good job. Here. Thank you.